With the season right around the corner, I wanted to discuss 4 players that I consider to be dark horse candidates to finish at the top of their position. So starting with the quarterbacks, I wanted to pick Kyler Murray for this, but he's become an extremely chalky pick as an undervalued name at the position, including now being Matthew Berry's ride or die pick.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Kyler Murray
drinks for free at the happy hour. He is my ride or die. He is my ride or die.
So I'm going with the other undervalued quarterback in Dak Prescott, who actually finished the year as the QB3 overall and QB4 in points per game last season, and has been a top 12 fantasy quarterback in 6 of the last 8 years. The reason why I believe Dak can finish as the QB1 this year is really simple. He's going to throw the ball a ton. That is the only way that Dallas is going to be able to consistently move the ball this year, because their running back room is atrocious right now. And it's so bad even that they're trying to bring in Dalvin Cook for a workout to see if he can actually improve it, which I highly doubt. So in order to actually score points and win games this year, Dallas is going to have to throw it a lot. And this isn't the first time that Dak has been asked to shoulder a massive amount of volume. He has eclipsed 37 attempts per game 3 times in his career. In 2019, Dak threw 596 times for 4,900 yards and 30 touchdowns and finished the year as the QB2 overall. In 2020, Dak is averaging an absurd 44.5 attempts per game and was on pace for almost 6,000 passing yards and 30 touchdowns, but unfortunately got hurt in week 5, but was the fantasy QB1 to start that season. And in 2021, Dak again threw 596 times for almost 4,500 yards and 37 touchdowns, finishing as the QB7 overall. So now if Dak breaks 37 pass attempts per game again in 2024, that is 630 plus pass attempts over the entire season. Using just his career averages for yards per attempt and touchdown percentage, that would be nearly 4,800 passing yards and 33 passing touchdowns. Add an extra 200 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns through the ground, which have been his averages too, and you're looking at a quarterback averaging 21 fantasy points per game, which would have been good for QB3 last year. And that's just using his base averages, not at all accounting for a higher touchdown percentage, which he has averaged 6% over the last 3 years, which bumps his passing touchdowns up to 38 total on the season. Plus, if he does anything more on the ground, like how he used to early in his career, you give him 38 passing touchdowns, an extra 50 rushing yards, and an extra rushing touchdown. That takes his fantasy numbers up to 22.8 points per game, right behind Josh Allen last year and ahead of Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. Now, of course, that's projecting a major season for really any quarterback in the NFL. Almost 5,000 yards, 40 plus total touchdowns. That is a massive season, but it is well within Dak Prescott's range of outcomes this year. The Cowboys' schedule is littered with amazing matchups all year. I mean, it's always nice to play the Giants and Commanders defenses twice a season, and we'll see if Philly's secondary improved at all this year after being absolutely horrendous all last year. He also gets shootout matchups at home against Detroit, Houston, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Tampa Bay, and he gets matchups against middle-of-the-pack defenses in Pittsburgh, San Francisco, New Orleans, and Atlanta, who he can easily get into shootouts with again, or just straight up dominate. Now, moving to running back, the answer for me here is, of course, Devon Achane, but I've talked about him enough that I will spare you guys the argument once again. So the next answer for me at the running back position would be Rams running back Kyren Williams. Again, another player who already was fantastic last year as the RB4 overall and the RB2 in points per game, behind only the Christian McCaffrey. Honestly, what Kyren Williams was doing last year was nothing short of impressive in this Rams offense. He shouldered a massive workload all year long, especially once he returned from injury. From weeks 12 through 17, Kyren was on a 17-game pace of over 1,900 rushing yards on 370 carries, plus an additional 300 yards and 6 touchdowns through the air. There were games where he saw 95 to 100% of the team's running back workload, and he was a massive league winner for anyone that picked him up off of waivers last year, especially since he dropped 30 fantasy points during your fantasy championship. The reason why I think he's considered a dark horse to be the RB1 is because people have concern about the Rams drafting Blake Corum in the 3rd round, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not really worried about it. Maybe it's because I just wasn't all that high on Corum coming out of college anyway, that I'm dismissing him cutting into Kyren's workload, but I just believe that Kyren is better at every facet of the game over Blake Corum. I think drafting Corum was more indicative of the players that they had behind Kyren Williams that they had to play when they got hurt, like Ronnie Rivers, Zach Evans, Royce Freeman, even signing Darrell Henderson off of the couch. but if Kyren Williams is healthy, he is the workhorse this year. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't believe that Kyren is going to produce to the level that he was at last year on a weekly basis. I don't think that Sean McVay wants Kyren Williams playing 95% of snaps again, but even if he plays 70% of snaps, he can still easily get over 300 touches, rush for 1,300 to 1,400 yards, double-digit touchdowns, plus average a few catches per game for another few hundred yards and a handful of touchdowns through the air. And all of a sudden, we're looking at a running back with 1,700 plus total yards, 14 plus touchdowns, and in any non-Christian McCaffrey season, that is more than enough to vie for the RB1 overall. Okay, since recording this video a couple days ago, news has come out that Kyren Williams will be the Rams punt returner according to Sean McVay, and the overreactions to this news have been absolutely wild. I think people just saw the headlines that were tweeted out or put out on Google and didn't actually watch the video where Sean McVay broke this news.
You know, Kyren Williams is going to be our punt returner, and it's another opportunity for him to get touches and impact the game, and you feel comfortable with that because of the confidence in Blake Corum and Ronnie Rivers, being able to spell him if need be. So that was what has made it tough for Axe. He didn't do anything not to win the punt return job. It's just, Kyren is a guy that we want to continue to have different ways that he can impact the game, and that's one that's going to be reflected.
What I took from this is that Kyren Williams is a focal point of the Rams offense, so much so that McVay is trying to find every opportunity he can to get him the ball. McVay also said that Corum and Rivers can spell Kyren if needed, meaning he's not going to pull Kyren off the field just to play the other guys. Kyren is 100% better than both of them, and Sean McVay knows it. So to give the Rams the best chance to win, the ball will be put in Kyren's hands as much as possible every single week. And just to clarify another thing, did you know that Kyren Williams returned punts last year? From weeks 1 through 3, Kyren was back for 8 punts. He fair caught 5 of them and returned 3 of them for an average of 7 yards per return. Nick Ercolano from BDGE even tweeted this out, showing the number of players in the entire NFL who averaged 2+ punt returns per game. Last year, it was 3. Only 3. Tank Dell returns punts, Jaden Reed returns punts, Josh Downs, Rashid Shaheed, even Bijan Robinson returned a punt last year. This does not matter at all for Kyren Williams in 2024, other than the fact that it instills even more confidence in me that Sean McVay loves Kyren Williams, so I should too. All right, getting to the wide receiver position, I really feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but recent opinions and rankings that I've seen on Twitter and online and in actual home leagues makes me feel like I need to say this. My dark horse fantasy wide receiver 1 this year is Justin Jefferson. Whoa, I know, crazy of me to assume that the best receiver in the league could be the best receiver in fantasy football, but it is wild out here in these streets, man. People really do not like Justin Jefferson this year, all because of someone named Sam Darnold. And listen, I get it. Sam Darnold is not a good quarterback. I don't even know why he's being given another chance at being a starter again in the NFL, and he is most definitely a massive downgrade from Kirk Cousins. But guys, this is still Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the NFL, the highest paid non-quarterback in all of NFL history, the player who has never averaged under 85 receiving yards per game and has had back-to-back seasons averaging over 105 yards per game and 20 plus PPR points per game. That is who Justin Jefferson is, and I feel like we've forgotten how good of a player he actually is because we haven't seen him play in over 9 months. You know what? Let's just refresh our memories for who Justin Jefferson really is.
Play fake. Cousins taking a deep shot. Jefferson's got separation, and he's got the catch inside the 40. Jefferson still going. See you later.
Play action on second down. Cousins steps into pressure, finds Jefferson, who breaks the tackle. A flag down in the backfield as Jefferson stays on his feet.
Cousins scrambling. Cousins fires.
Touchdown Vikings, Justin Jefferson.
In the backfield.
Cousins, deep shot. Got a man. Jefferson, you bet. Touchdown, Minnesota.
Cousins all day, loading up, going deep. Jefferson, he's got it. Sailing into the end zone. Pressure coming. Cousins decked. Throws it up for Jefferson. He's got it. And he is in. Touchdown, Minnesota.
Rolling to his right, going to take a chance down the field, and it is caught. Jefferson.
Cousins over the middle. How is he that wide open? Jefferson again inside the 10, lunging for the end zone. Touchdown.
Here, a lot of choices
Floating one for the end zone, and Jefferson reaches up, hauls it in, and hangs on for a touchdown, Vikings.
Kirk Cousins back to throw on 4th and 18. He's given time. He wants Jefferson. Climbs the ladder. Oh, my goodness. Kirk Cousins, can he do it again? It's Jefferson again. It's a touchdown. The comeback kids have done it again.
So as you can see, it really doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Justin Jefferson is going to be amazing. In fact, last season from weeks 15 through 18, Jefferson averaged just a measly 119 yards and 0.5 touchdowns per game on 11 targets per game, which equaled out to just 22 PPR points per game as the wide receiver 3 overall. Oh, and he did that with Nick Mullins at quarterback. Nick Mullins. TJ Hawkinson is starting the year on the PUP list and may not even return as soon as he can after that. Jordan Addison is currently injured with an ankle sprain that'll probably linger into the start of the season, and he could also still be suspended for his misdemeanor charges for drunk driving from a month ago. KJ Osborne is also gone. He left in free agency, so there's really no legitimate wide receiver 3 in Minnesota, so all of the targets are once again going to funnel over to Justin Jefferson, as they honestly really should. He might honestly get 200 targets this year. I would not be at all shocked if he did, and if he's getting 200 targets, I don't know how he doesn't finish as the fantasy wide receiver 1, or at least a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. And it's not like we haven't seen this before. A superstar wide receiver playing with terrible quarterbacks, getting absolutely peppered with targets. Just ask DeAndre Hopkins what it was like back in 2015, catching passes from Brian Hoyer and Ryan Mallett. I mean, all he could muster up that year was 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns on 192 targets. That is over 19 fantasy points per game, which is more or less exactly what Justin Jefferson has been doing his entire career. So please, do not worry about Justin Jefferson and be happy to draft him in the mid to late first if your league is letting him fall that far. And finally, we get to the tight end position, and once again, the easy answer for me is Kyle Pitts, but I've talked about him so much already on this channel that I'm going to spare you guys the lecture and instead highlight Cardinals tight end Trey McBride, an elite name at the position this year for sure, but not one that I've generally seen linked to having tight end 1 overall upside. From week 8 on last year, Trey McBride averaged 15 fantasy points per game, which was actually better than Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce over that stretch. He averaged 8.5 targets per game, 65 yards, 0.3 touchdowns, which is a 17-game pace of over 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns on 144 targets. Just a massive amount of production from a second-year tight end, and there's really no reason that he can't do that again in 2024. I mean, sure, everyone is rightfully excited about Marvin Harrison Jr., and he is going to be the focal point of the Cardinals offense. There is no denying that, and that would move Trey McBride to second on the team in targets. But that's not really a concern for me. See, I believe this Cardinals team is going to be a lot better than people think it will be, and this passing offense will undoubtedly be better than what it was last year with Josh Dobbs or a recovering from ACL injury Kyler Murray. If Kyler can return to his 2020 or 2021 form when he was passing for upwards of 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns or more, then that is more than enough volume for both Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride as the main weapons on this offense. And this is even assuming that we are right about Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. Not that he won't be good, he's definitely going to be great, but he's currently being drafted as a top 10 fantasy receiver, meaning we expect him to put up 1,100 plus yards, 7 plus touchdowns this year. That is what is required of him to live up to his ADP. But what if he doesn't do that? What if he's not an elite rookie wide receiver and just a normal higher end rookie like Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave at 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns, or Devonta Smith at 900 yards and 5 touchdowns? Those are still great rookie wide receiver seasons, but they don't live up to his ADP and also would leave room for someone else on the team to soak up some extra yards and some more touchdowns, and that other player is most likely Trey McBride. So while everyone is excited to draft Sam Laporta high or throw their hat back in the Travis Kelce ring, I am more than happy to wait a round or two and draft Trey McBride as a top 5 fantasy tight end with legitimate tight end 1 overall upside.